All right, this is Life Update number 96. The night air is crisp as I walk back home across CSU's campus. I glance up at the stars as I walk, wishing I could pair this view with a good song. After a moment, my gaze returns to Earth and I look out upon the sleeping campus. There was something beautiful about how still it all was. Sure, there was the occasional student in the distance, but even so, the serenity stood in stark contrast with the street's typical bustling nature. It was peaceful. As I led my gaze across the grounds, something caught it. Did that bush just move? I could have sworn that off to the right and in the distance, an entire bush had just tumbled a few feet from where it had been rooted previously. As I look more intently, it suddenly happens again. Something, more like a pile of leaves and sticks than a bush, was slowly inching its way across the grass. It was only when the pile then got up and ran behind a nearby tree, its shoulders extending beyond both sides of the truck, might I add, that I realized it was a person. Just some dudes in Gilli suits, I thought, the mystery solved. Still, even with my curiosity abated, they were well worth watching. There were 4 of them in total, and they cartwheeled and army crawled toward me, shimmying behind trees and freezing at random points as if that did anything to hide them. Only on a college campus, I thought with a chuckle, as I watched the white one, presumably their leader, make a hand signal to stop. They all froze. Then, after a few seconds of hesitation, the white thing pointed in my direction, and all 4 of them started charging toward me, running like the Titans from AOT. I felt a tinge of unease wash over me, and instinctively I looked around to see if anyone else was nearby. There was no one. So, unsure of what else to do, I kept walking on, as if I wasn't the least bit concerned. However, as they got closer, I felt the compulsion to pull out my phone and film, feeling as if that gave me some moniker of protection. "Well, hello there," I said confidently as they reached me. They were all breathing heavy and, while they were humanoid in shape, the Gilli-suited figures had no faces. The creatures didn't reply and dropped into crouches and crawls and began to encircle me. I stopped walking. These guys clearly weren't something I could just ignore. "So what? You all just really missed Halloween and wanted to give it another go?" Nothing but heavy breathing and a slow, crouching advance. They had fully encircled me now and were within arm's length. I swallowed back my discomfort and spun around to get them all on camera. Continuing to project my false sense of confidence, I asked, "So, you do this every..." Suddenly, the creatures raised a single finger to their lips and all began to shush me. Shush, shush, shush. But there's no one... Once again, I was cut off by a tidal wave of aggressive shushing. They were close now, too close. They continued to crouch and shush as they circled around me, and soon the white one was right before me. He reached inside the folds of his stringy body and slowly produced a familiar object, a single dum-dum. "You're not going to..." "Shush," the 3 other creatures were in unison. Slowly the white thing unwrapped the dum-dum. "No," I stated firmly, "I'm not eating that." "Shush," the white Gilli suit consoled as he raised a finger to my lips. "Shush, .. He waddled a step closer till he was right before me and began to raise the sucker to my mouth. I pulled my head back instinctively and tried to take a step back before bumping into one of the creatures behind me. "No way, man." "Shush, shush, shush, shush." A chorus of shushes and raised fingers promised me it would be all right. The white things put the candy to my lips. I didn't let it enter my mouth. "Shush, .. He held it there as shushes leaked from the creatures surrounding me. I looked around one last time to see if by some miracle anyone sane was nearby. There wasn't. It seemed the creatures wanted me to eat this sucker, and short of pushing through them and sprinting away, there was no getting out of it. Hence, I made the decision. I had to. I let the white one put the dum-dum into my mouth. No sooner had I tasted it than all the creatures leapt backward, got on their hands and knees, and began to worship me like some pagan god. Their shushes became excited and reverent. The white one took a knee and bowed his head. Still tasting the blue raspberry and sensing my opening, I cautiously began to forward. The creatures didn't follow. They simply continued to worship from whence I had left them until I rounded the corner out of sight. I stopped the video I had been taking and pulled the sucker from my mouth. If I didn't have the video, I don't think anyone would have believed what just happened to me, I thought to myself as I tried to make sense of what had just occurred. After replaying the scene in my mind as I walked, and checking over my shoulder a few times to make sure I wasn't being followed, I simply chuckled to myself. Okay then, I muttered aloud, and with a shrug, I popped the candy back into my mouth and continued on my way. All right. Yeah. Pretty cursed. All right. As always, the tales within these life updates are unabashedly true, though with slight exaggeration. However, in this case, literally everything described did happen, except just not all to the same person, because, see, I wasn't assaulted by the Gilli suit figures, or Gilli suit, I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. I was one of the Gilli suit figures. The idea was deep-voiced Noah's, and honestly, it was so much fun. 4 of us guys got into full ghillie suits, went on campus, and messed with students just like that for 2.5 hours straight. I bought like 200 dum-dums, and literally we gave them all away. We didn't speak a single word. All we did was shush, and it was actually so fun. There was this one group of guys that were trying to play it cool, but were getting progressively weirded out, and so they went inside their dorm expecting us to stay at the door, but lol, no, we totally followed them all the way up the stairs and to their actual dorm door. Another group made us hot chocolate in exchange for a stick. Another led us into the honors building, and we messed around in there. One girl went to chase Daniel, one of the guys in the suits, but when he didn't run from her, just stood there not knowing what to do, it was genuinely great. I swear we must have been all over CSU social media for a day because, like, everyone was filming us, and for the most part, they seemed to really enjoy it, though, lol, no one knew quite what to think of the scenario. We made it a policy to leave girls who were by themselves alone, but otherwise, basically everyone else was fair game. Honestly, the hordes of freshman girls, when there were like 6 or 7 of them, those were the best groups to interact with. Anyway, so yeah, I wish I was able to find some social media posts about what we were doing, because I'm sure there were a bunch, but I have no social media, so rip. And of course, we weren't taking any pictures during the occasion, so the only documentation I got was of us right before. Okay. Overall, though, it was a great time thanks to Noah, Daniel, and David all getting into it. Very memorable and hence life update email intro worthy. Wink. Obviously, that tale is vastly out of chronological order, though, so let's pick off where the last life update left off. I believe after sending the last life update out, I went to Joe and Karina's, in which Joe and I went on a walk and had a meh convo. I then caught up with Karina, and from there, the 3 of us had a good conversation about marriage. Upon that conversation's cessation, I played Joe in Smash Bros. And won. I like being better than Joe at a video game. Went back home, assembled my new scooter that replaced the one that exploded, and oh my gosh, it is so much better. I didn't get to ride it that night, but major upgrade, and for the same price, too. Regardless, did that, then Funimade, journaled, and slept. I very much enjoyed my ride to school the next morning. Listened to a bunch of Aurora songs, she's a pretty cool artist. Did all the school things. Did work at work, scootered to the post office to sort out getting my package to actually be delivered to me without signing. So annoying, ... And then relaxed with Cheetos and reading before scootering all the way to Joe's. However, I came to discover that the advertised range of my new scooter was false, at least with using the light and going at full speed the whole time. Hence, after Monday Night Magic, Joe and Karina were kind enough to drive me back home, given my mode of transportation was, in fact, dead. That night, Em called me and updated me on her crazy life. I journaled for a bit, and that was it. The next morning, I did pills before going to work and folding letters for 4 hours. I then attended my Cali class, did Funime with Mom, played racquetball with Benj and barely lost, read some, finished the anime I was on, did a brief scooter ride, journaled, and then slept. Wednesday, I attended class, reinstalled my key module into my Porsche during the break with some difficulty. I swear I've been traumatized by mechanic work because it actually stresses me out disproportionately, ... But hey, I did it, and it works. So, saved $400. Barely got that done before I had to go to work, but I did. At work, I did nothing important, worked out after getting home, Funimade with Mom, finished the anime I was on, read a lot, started writing my cancer book, but that process is vexing, read more, did Funime and pills, and then called it a day. I began to feel sick the next morning, which was sad. However, I played pickleball anyway because sports are life and anyone who says differently is selling something. Thereafter, I read more, attended a philosophy ethics bowl meeting in which I found a genius philosophy guy who I talked to way past my martial arts class because the conversation was so good. I finally found one guy on my philosophical level, and it's very, very exciting. I hope to befriend him and pillage his INTP brain for knowledge, dot, dot, dot. So that was fantastic, and the exact reason I attend those meetings. Hence, I felt quite successful. I then went home and read, took my mom on a brief drive, finished yet another anime, and took a bath to try and feel better, and then slept. The next morning, I should have attended class, but I was big sick, so I didn't. I woke up early, journaled for a bit as amazing genius thoughts struck me, and then I went back to sleep till around 1. Once I woke up, I was very excited to share the thoughts I had, but unfortunately, no one was willing to listen to me, which honestly was very disappointing because it's pretty rare I get that excited about, well, anything. Honestly, I felt pretty let down. It's a sucky feeling when you really value something, but no one else around you does. Nevertheless, Amelia and Nathan were willing to hear me out on a whim, so after getting Chick-fil-A, working out, and summarizing my thoughts, I then drove an hour down to Laramie and proceeded to share my musings on the nature of love and the newlyweds, Amelia and Nathan. And honestly, they turned out to be like the perfect couple to hear my thoughts. Perfect balance of feeler and thinker, and I actually very much enjoyed my time. Nathan is pretty cool, and of course, I already liked Amelia. Also, she made their space big cozy, so props on the interior design, wink. So yeah, it ended up being really good, and a genuinely great social occasion, so I'm glad I did it. Plus, I just love driving my Spartan so much. The hour drive there and back really was not tedious. The next day, I felt more sick. I made my pillboxes and listened to podcasts, ate, played 2.5 hours of table tennis over at the senior center with Dad and his friend. It was okay, but sick sports are always kind of meh. From there, I did Funame before, for the first time since I literally wrote it, rereading the book I wrote, Shadow Tone. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. I expected it to be god-awful levels of cringe, like Esoteric Destiny is, because that one actually is so bad, XD. But in reality, there was just baby cringe. Kind of blows my mind that, 1, I took all the time and effort to write a whole freaking book, lol, twice, and 2, that I literally haven't ever read it. Like, bro, why did you write the book if you're not going to read it? I don't know. I guess there really wasn't much point to reading it now before, because I remembered it for quite a while. I mean, I wrote the whole thing. You would hope I would remember the plot, but gosh, 8 years later, I'm 25 now, dot, dot, dot. Oh my goodness, I'm old. I had actually forgotten what happened. Hence, the rereading, and lo and behold, I was actually surprised by the plot. Not pleasantly surprised, mind you, but definitely surprised, XD. But yeah, I don't know. The whole thing just feels so futile to me. I mean, that book was my 17-year-old self's heart and soul. I slaved over that, literally for every waking moment of a whole summer. Yet what was writing that book even for? I mean, granted, not like most of us would have done better things with our summers, and to also be fair, most people that endeavor to write can't say they've actually finished a book. But, even still, what did all that effort and emotion matter? Like, it's not that good, it's never going to go anywhere, and aside from a few Myers and friends who pity read the thing, which, you know what, I appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who endured reading it, even though it wasn't great, because it actually makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. No one, not even me, well, until just now, has read it. Like, even I won't read it. What does that say about life, the universe, and everything else? Frankly, I don't know, but it sure can't be good, dot, dot, dot. Anyway, reread my book. It was a decent time. I, of course, journaled quite a bit upon completing that task, and then it was just time to sleep. I slept in the next day because I felt big sick. I read some, did Funame, worked out, read some more, then I drove Cable, Petri, and Julia, little sister and wife respectively, to the airport to send Cable off. 'Twas a great talk there and just as good a talk back. Julia is definitely an ISFJ, but I don't quite have Petri clocked yet. She's a bit of an enigma to me. Still, the conversations were fun and very glad I did it. After all that driving, I then read more, called with Grace, and scootered in the cold as we caught up, and then just ended the night with some Funame, journaling, and slept. I slept past my alarm the next day, as luck would have it. Most of my classes were substantially canceled anyway, so it worked out. I took a test, did all the small things, journaled, attended art class, and worked. Still just folding away letters. You don't understand. There are so many letters, dot, dot, dot. Once I was finally freed from my indentured servitude, I then read, did Funame with Mom, called M as I drove to Monday night, did all the magic, and then crashed as soon as I got home because my sickness assaulted me. I attended a doctor's appointment the next morning, which was utterly pointless. Anyone know how best I could take out my rage against the medical system? I'm open to suggestions. I've been considering arson, but it feels too clinical, you know? I want to see the fear in the whites of their eyes as they realize just how sorry they are for the mountain of inefficiency and dehumanization I've undergone by their hand. ... Mark my words, revenge shall be sweet. Once I got home, I journaled, probably about how much I hate doctors, but lol, who knows. I then worked, did funame, journaled. Katie and I walked to get boba in the snow, but while I was enjoying the cold, she was dying, so we pivoted to a drive, and her inferior SI found that more agreeable. 'Twas a very good talk. I woke up early the next morning to meet with Mr. Schroyer, something I had set in motion ages back at Amelia's wedding. And honestly, it wasn't a bad meeting. I'm pretty sure he is also an ENTJ, so he was blunt, but I liked it. The trouble seems not that there is some grand secret to getting all the money fast, but that the topic is in fact complex and not easily systemized. Hence, this advice was somewhat vague. Still glad I did it for sure, but alas, this seems it's going to be much harder than I thought. But fear not, I shall be rich someday. You know, you would just be heartbroken if I didn't get rich. So really, I'm doing this for you, ... Out of selfless compassion, ... Obviously. Yeah, then maybe someday he'll pay me for narrating these. After that convo, I then attended school, worked, and read philosophy books. Katie joined me for my workout at Raintree, but what that functionally meant was I worked out and then grabbed her when I left. I don't really do social workouts. I kind of hate them. I then did funame before Benj picked me up in his new car, 'tis big fancy, and we played racquetball. I'm sure I lost, ... I always lose. But I'm not discouraged, not at all, ... I read when I got back, tried to have a grand philosophy convo with a big brain philosophy man who cameoed earlier, but unfortunately, he has another lover, ... His literal girlfriend. Stupid girlfriend, stupid romance. You're telling me Hegel's ontology of being and becoming means less to you than a woman? Are you even a philosopher, ... As you can probably tell, I have intellectually disowned him out of a Nietzschean sense of moralizing my own weakness and inferiority. I regret nothing. What was I talking about? Does it even matter? I don't know. I'm just going to go to the next day. I slept in, proceeded to go to a physical Wells Fargo building to set up a checking account for a bonus I had already gamed on, so ... That was embarrassing. But I walked out with a credit card, so huzzah! We take those. After that, I drove once again to the airport to pick up my New Zealand childhood friend Daniel Daxo, because he decided to come visit me for 4 days. Really weird meeting someone again after 7 years. Like, he had changed in quite a few ways, but in other ways, he was still very much the same. However, due to inferior TE, Daniel's an ISFP, I think I drove around the airport pickup zone 5 times before he figured out where he was. Hence, I ended up missing my martial arts class. It worked out, though. I probably would have skipped it anyway to spend more time with him. So yeah, eventually I found him and picked him up. We stopped at Buc-ee's, to which he was like, in the iconic anime girl voice, "Whoa!" And then we drove home, played some table tennis at the Durrell Center, and talked. It was actually not as good of a conversation as I hoped. He seemed less willing to be vulnerable than I remember, ... Anyway, we then ate dinner with the fam. Daniel has become way more talkative. He used to be super quiet, so it was pretty interesting watching that shift play out as he talked with mom and dad. After that, I then took him to get deep-fried Oreos. Because he's in America, what could possibly be more American than obesity, XD? And then, on his request, we started watching Stranger Things together because I had never seen it, and apparently, Daniel thinks it's like the best thing ever. And to be fair, it was pretty good for a non-anime show, ... The next morning, I woke up quite early for Friday morning yoga. 'Twas wonderful, as always. I attended all the classes, did banking stuff, and then watched some Stranger Things with Daniel upon getting home. Took him to the gym with me as I worked out. We watched more Stranger Things. Then I went and attended Benj's engagement party. Seeing as him and Nessa are officially engaged now. Wow, it's been that long. Yeah, sorry, this one was a little bit late. That's my bad on waiting to record it for a while. I kind of forgot about it. And that was actually really lovely. I got to talk with people I hadn't talked to in a hot sec. And also, I got to nerd out in front of Nessa's brother Kyle and subsequently think I have achieved demigod status in his nerd eyes. I grant it's not much of a flex, but I am king of the nerds. Speaking of which, I have to recount something that already happened in this life update retelling, but I'll go back to it just because bragging is fun. When I attended the Ethics Bowl meeting in search of my philosophical bestie, what I relished witnessing was the sheer magnitude of my philosophical power dawning on these nerds. Hee hee, nothing delights me more than being underestimated and showing everyone how wrong they are. See, of course all 7 of these guys are mega nerds. You can hear it in how they talk, none of them are fit, all the nerd things. Though I will say there's a special kind of nerd that is the philosophy nerd, ... odd subculture, but I distract myself. The point being, when I first got there, I was flat out ignored. They, like all good philosophy nerds, assumed I was dumb and they were smarter than me. Then proceeded to be the status quo for half an hour as one ENTJ guy monopolized the conversation and didn't let basically anyone else get a word in. Gosh, ENTJs, am I right? Who would ever do something so rude, ... And I, of course, was used to this, used this time to listen and size the people up. However, when I was able to find a gap and squeeze my thoughts in, everyone was like, whatever. But they started paying attention to me because I had used philosophy nerd speak, so it was clear I wasn't a complete idiot. I then got my second word in, and the ENTJ, recognizing me as a threat, engaged with me to assert intellectual dominance. Big mistake. As soon as he engaged with me, I got center stage, intellectually overpowered him, and then it was all downhill from there. I ran the conversation from then on, but not in a rude, domineering way, mind you. I'm phrasing everything as very warlike because I want to emphasize my power in this domain. But I was actually super civil and didn't monopolize the conversation at all. But the point is, what shifted is people very quickly started listening to me and dialoguing with me as it became clear I was the heavyweight in the room. By the end of it, everyone was shaking my hand, asking me my name, and I got quite a few, "Are you really just an engineering major?" comments. So anyway, the point of sharing all that was I kind of forget I'm actually goated in this area. Recently, I've been trying to grow in so many areas I suck at, combined with the fact that I've just stopped pursuing philosophical discussion in my day-to-day, and thus overall, I've just been feeling like I'm trying to catch up to everyone else. But I have to remember philosophy was all I did for multiple years. And yes, that did make me fall behind in areas like humor and emotional intelligence, but it wasn't like all that time was wasted. While my skill set may be very niche, small moments like those make me remember I am actually a god-tier philosophy nerd. I can walk into a room of the best, most enthusiastic philosophy bros on a 40,000-person campus and command respect. That's not something almost anyone else I know can do, especially because, lol, us philosophy nerds don't give respect easily. So yeah, just that moment at the Ethics Bowl group and talking with Kyle at the engagement party made me remember, oh yeah, I'm genuinely the best at this thing. And that was pleasant, because I had somehow genuinely forgotten that was true, XD. But regardless of the nerd ego stroking, I had just had a good time in general, and it was a good engagement party. Once I got back home, Daniel just wanted to watch more Stranger Things, so we did that till 1:30 in the morning. See, something you must understand about ISFPs is, while yes, they are very fun, most often they just want to chill. They do a lot of chilling, ... I slept in the next day. Daniel and I were thinking about doing yoga that morning, but given the late night, decided sleeping in was best. I then started coordinating with people for the aforementioned Gilli suit ventures. Organizing these sorts of things is always a hassle. Daniel and I walked down to Alley Cat as I was doing this. Apparently, he's gotten a coffee every day for the last 2 years. We then drove to Estes, because if you're visiting from Colorado, you have to see the mountains. I took him to get fish and chips and drove him up to Lily Lake, of which I have some pictures. We slid around the frozen lake. That was fun. We didn't end up staying up there for too long since he thought it was freezing, which is hilarious to me because I promise it was hardly cold, XD. So yeah, we drove back down and listened to music, bought the Dum-Dums from Walmart after looking for ring pops, and then Noah and David arrived. After chatting a bit, we suited up, and then we went and terrorized college students. Yay, fun! After that all ended and Noah and David left, Daniel and I watched one more episode of Stranger Things before he went to bed. I wasn't quite tired yet, so I ended up calling Em and talking with her as I cleaned up the house. The parents were gone at this time, so it was just Daniel and I home, and I know how much Mom values things not being a mess, so I didn't want her to come back to that. The next morning, I got up at 5 to take Daniel to the airport. We had one last chat on the way there, and then I sent him off. Overall, a very chill and enjoyable hangout. Glad to see Daniel again. I proceeded to then drive back home. I worked out and ate some food before sleeping until 2. After 2, though, I did something novel. Namely, I got a 3-hour-long message. Now, let me tell you, 3 hours is a very long time to get a message for. Having done it, it's probably too long if I'm honest. Plus, it was not like a nice, gentle message. It was like a how much can I make you suffer message. It actually hurt so bad, XD. So 3 hours of that for literally every muscle of your body, let me just tell you, it's brutal. I don't regret doing it per se, but in the future, I think I will vote for a less lengthy option. Anyway, I did that for an age, walked out feeling very relaxed though. I also had a headache. Got home to find Ben's friend Dylan was there, so I promptly ignored him and took a shower. I then finished my shower and emerged to chat with Katie and Dylan, because Ben and Katie had been hanging. Proceeded to type Dylan incorrectly, though I was close. Did a work session with Katie, and then we all went to Ben's house for a pretty good convo. Once it began to devolve, I left. I read some, journaled, and then went to bed. The next day, I started feeling sick again, which I thought was from the message, because I had been told that deep tissue messages like that release toxins in your tissues, though AI tells me the rumors of that effect have been greatly exaggerated. But having now lived through the entirety of that sickness, I assure you it was not mere delayed toxins. I think I might have gotten mono because Sam got sick from me and he got mono, plus Grace had it in New Zealand and potentially Ben got me sick. I don't know. There's a whole mono tale and I don't really care to recount it. The point is, I started feeling sick, but I ignored it. I attended classes, called M in the Gap, did more classes, worked and did homework, got home and read before scootering to Joe's for Monday night. But my magic ended early due to a text from Katie that brought up a whole FI topic I suddenly had to deal with. So that was lovely. I called her as I scootered home because I remembered to charge it this time, baby. Though, lol, I barely made it home. It almost died. The call was good, but I still needed to journal about it once I actually made it home. Ugh. Being in tune with your emotions low-key kind of sucks. Before, I could have just stuffed it and finished playing Magic, but these days, I'm so sensitive. Emotions are dumb. The next day, I felt more sick, yet I tried to carry on as normal. I did funime, read, attended work, and did some work on my cancer book. Gosh, it's such a big task. I'm not usually daunted by things, but this is daunting me, ... After work, I attended Cali class, had dinner with the fam. Ben was back in town. Took pills, read, had my interview with Dylan, because that's why Dylan was here. Ben told him about me, and from what he heard, he decided he wanted to interview me for his channel, so we'll see if that goes anywhere. It was actually pretty fun. Plus, I'm glad I did the interview when I did, because I just got sicker after that, and I wouldn't have been up for it. As forecasted, the next day, I was dead. I forced myself to get up and go to my first class, but after attending it, I was like, yeah, no way I can swing this. So I just went back home and slept. That day is kind of mush. I'm pretty sure Katie came over for a work session, but I'm also pretty sure I didn't do any work, and I think I sent her home because I just needed to sleep. I don't know, it was a bad day. The next day was just as bad. I forced myself to work out because up until that point, I hadn't missed a day, but it was a lame workout. But hey, I did do it. I took lots of naps, watched lots of Gravity Falls, took a bath, and just slept a lot. I felt a tad better the next day, but nevertheless, the day was ill spent. Haha, get it? Ill, ... spent. Yeah, I cracked myself up. Humor mastery, easy win. I just did a lot of sleeping, a lot of binging, a lot of journaling, and that night I rode on a scooter beside Jake as he walked and we had quite the good conversation for a few hours. But honestly, that was too much and I just pushed myself too hard, so I shouldn't have done that. I just died as soon as I got back home. Yeah, I remember that. You pulled up and you were quite sick, and I remember kind of being like, why is bro here? Was that... I'm trying to remember when that was. It was on your birthday, wasn't it? I think that was on your birthday. Boy, this is a really old life update email. Was that the night we went and went to Walgreens and I got a Gatorade or something? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that night. Yeah, we walked we met over at the parking lot across from Summit View and we went on the trail for a ways. I think maybe we went through Spring Canyon Park again, and then I remember we stopped at that Walgreens near Drake and Taft, and I got a drink. And then we parted ways up at like Drake and Meadowlark. If it's the ride I'm thinking of. We did have a good conversation. But yeah, anyway. The next day I started to feel functional again. Not good, but functional. I read, napped, watched Gravity Falls. Katie and I took a brief drive, did a work session, and took a break to talk and walk, but again, pushed myself too hard there. So after she left and I just crashed, watched some Gravity Falls, and went to bed. The next day, I was able to do some light work, as well as read some. I got the compulsion to clean everything. It doesn't happen to me very often, but it does happen. And so, I did that, and my room was beautiful. As I made my pillboxes, I looked for new music. And then I went to Ben's house, where it was the classic chit-chat experience, but I actually had a good time that time, so I don't know what was different, but I enjoyed it. The next morning, school assaulted me, so I decided I would make the effort to attend, though I wasn't feeling all the way better. I made it through my first class okay, but by the time my philosophy test rolled around, I was genuinely dying. Nevertheless, even though I could hardly keep my eyes open and felt horrible, I got a perfect score on the quiz. I've gotten a perfect score on nearly every quiz in that class, ... As soon as I turned that in, I went straight home and slept until I had to get back up for work. I limped through work, got home, and just laid on the couch for a few hours until I went to bed at literally 8. When have I ever gone to bed at 8... I woke up early for my PET scan the next day. And you know, seeing this fact in context, it makes sense why the scan was just, everything is lighting up. Because, lol, I was clearly very sick. And when you're sick, surprise, your immune system is in fact active. So in hindsight, it makes a whole lot of sense why the scan was quite hard to read. But see, in the moment, I had spun this beautiful little narrative that I was almost better and that the little bit of sickness I still had shouldn't be an issue. And I was right, said every TJ type, always, ... Well, I would have been had I just been a little sick. And I knew they would turn me away if they saw I was for realsy sick. So I stifled every cough and runny nose as best I could, though that whole process, I was able to fall to my knees hacking out a lung on the way back to my car. Not actually, but like almost actually, XD. So yeah, I guess I'll just skip to that pet news now, which, you know, you should all have seen since I used the same email list for my cancer updates, but huzzah! I'm definitely maybe cancer-free! Yay! Well, no, I should actually be good, XD. This scan had a lot of activity because of the aforementioned sickness, but none of it looked cancerous. And given the data we have on the treatment I just underwent, if at first scan it's clear, if that first scan is clear, it's pretty darn unlikely I relapse from there. So, as of now, I could probably say that I am officially cancer-free, and that, of course, is very exciting. However, I obviously don't know that having just got the scan, jumping back to chronological order. But what was really cool is I wasn't nervous at all. Like, this was the do-or-die scan, and yet I was super at peace and didn't feel any anxiety until literally the minute before I opened the email telling me if I was clear or not. Personally, I think that's pretty epic, especially given where I started from. I mean, at the start, I was so nervous that for days before, I couldn't do anything productive. And I remember being in near fetal position on Joe's floor the Monday night before my first scan. I was so inexperienced back then, ... Death was still this big, scary monster to me. Ooh, foreshadowing here. That'll make sense in a minute. Or in a little bit, I guess. Honestly, it's pretty cool how chill I am with death these days. Like, we're buds. We dap each other up in the hallway. And I mean, I don't think that's really unique. Most of us that really get close to encountering death kind of chill out about it. Because, lol, we have to. You can't have existential terror all the time. It's just not sustainable. But still, it's cool to see the shift in myself over these, 2.5 years? Man, this has felt like forever. How did I only have cancer for 2.5 years? Whack, ... I've changed so much through this season. Like, actually, there's definitely never been a season in my life where I changed more than this cancer season. But lol, then again, what should I expect? If almost dying doesn't change you, what will, XD? Still honestly really grateful I got to have that sustained near-death experience early in my life. It forced me to mature and tackle some really hard things most people don't face till they're old. Because, lol, it kind of takes death to really make you face stuff like that, XD. But Now that I have faced it, I basically get to have old person wisdom at 25. Like, that's kind of goated, not gonna lie. Like, I have really tackled my inferior function and core fears in a way no one that I know really has, dot, dot, dot. It's honestly kind of dope. I get to be an old soul in a young body. But you know, it's also kind of lonely, not gonna lie. Like, I feel like I can just see more than everyone. And yeah, I'm an NI type, and I've been saying that for ages, we get it. But I don't mean like intellectually this time. I mean like lifey. Like, I have this perspective now that I don't know how to describe, dot, dot, dot. I mean, I guess like an old guy looking out across his life. It's clear to me what things matter and what don't. What passes and what stays, what's true, and what's just a game we all play, dot, dot, dot. There's no point trying to describe it to you all. Maybe I don't know anything. Regardless, it feels kind of lonely because no one shares that perspective with me. Nevertheless, one of the cool things about having the perspective is it makes loneliness okay. Like, I'm pretty happy being alone. I make for pretty good company if I do say so myself, wink. But still, this life experience has in some real sense segregated me from the majority of humanity. And that's a little bit sad. Worth it, but still sad. Anywho, where was I? All right. Did my PET scan, got home, and was super tired. So I called in sick to work and just slept. I got up for my martial arts class, though I really didn't want to go. Got that done and then took a bath, binged, and went to sleep way early. I started to feel mostly normal the next day, so I was able to get through all my classes. Plus, at work, we finally finished letter folding, so it was nice to do my own thing again. I then drove to Loveland to work out with Alan, but he was 25 minutes late, so I mostly worked out without him, and then by the time he got there, I was coughing and dying so much, I basically just watched him, Liam, and Noah complete their workouts. It was a fun idea, but bad in practice. After that, the four of us all went to this place Liam knew, where we got great food for super cheap. It was Mediterranean food, too, so that's always fantastic. After we'd eaten, we all went back to Noah's house where we played Smash Bros. On my Switch till it was time to go. 'Twas a decent hangout, and I didn't really do much once I got home, but slept. The dawning of the sun brought a doctor's appointment that had been scheduled. However, when I got there, they were like, "Sorry, but we rescheduled your appointment without your permission to the 24th and left you a voicemail about it." Bruh. I didn't even know they called me. And why wouldn't they send me an email? Calling is just inefficient. Like what, you think I'm going to interrupt whatever important moment I'm in to talk about scheduling? Heck no. 2, you should at least have to confirm with me before you reschedule an appointment. Like, you can't just do that unilaterally. 3, it was your fault the appointment had to be rescheduled because the scheduler was incompetent and didn't think about the fact that I need to talk to the actual doctor, not the doctor's assistant, after a PET scan, which is obvious because only the doc can interpret the PET scan. 4, and finally, and most importantly, the time you rescheduled it to entirely defeats the purpose of the appointment. The whole point of the doctor's appointment is to review my PET scan. Hence, why the appointment was scheduled 2 days after the scan. But when you reschedule it 23 days after the scan, literally more than 3 weeks have passed. What do you expect the patient to just sit in the dark for over 3 weeks? I'm telling you, arson. I will commit arson and burn every hospital to the ground. When I become world dictator, you will be punished, Emily Berganini. Your face, ... You will face my wrath. Aside from motivating me toward criminal acts, the drive there ended up being pointless, and I was just very annoyed at the whole situation. Once I got home, I slept it off, got confirmation through a convoluted message that my interpretation of my scan had been correct, and the cancer was gone. Huzzah! Then I spent the next 2 hours talking to all the people about said fact. I then played pickleball. I really like pickleball. And sent out the official, "I don't have cancer" email, talked to people a lot more, and then played chess with Ben at Alley Cat and caught up with him. After that, me and him joined the parents for a celebration dinner at Yum Yum's. 'Twas good, and I also opened my birthday presents and got this super sick journal. Once we got back home, I finished watching through all of the Gravity Falls, took my pills, and slept at 9. I got good sleep that night, felt mostly better, attended class, worked out, packed, got hugs from all the members of Katie's family I had maybe met once before when I came to pick her up to carpool to the airport. That was an experience, but hey, they were all really happy about me being cancer-free, so I guess I can't complain. After driving back to my house, Ben picked both of us up and drove us to switch yards, which is this co-working space he now has lifetime access to. It was okay. Nothing to write home about, but still cool. Plus, they have endless stroopwafels, so those were delicious. After Ben dropped us off, we were still pretty early, so Katie and I just wandered around the airport and talked as we waited for our flight. You know what? I don't think I ever explained the context. You know what? I don't think I ever explained the context of why we were flying, so let me take a step back. Ages ago, like 2 months ago, Em was like, you guys need to come see my college. And since she's good friends with my cousin Sam, Sam was like, yeah, that'd be fun. You should do it. Hence, a plan was concocted, and because I had a bunch of free miles from a Frontier's credit card deal, I just booked Katie's and my tickets together and charged her half price, hence us flying together. So yeah, this was the start of that trip. Lo and behold, our flight got delayed, literally every flight with Frontier, ... Ugh, they suck as an airline. But they are cheap. So Katie and I just had to wait for hours, and during that time, she actually pulled out some brilliant TE advice. So that was a great conversation, which also caught me off guard. However, eventually, we did get on our flight, and we touched down in Arizona at like 2 in the morning. Sam and Em came and picked us up, and then we had to break into GCU's campus because they don't let visitors in after midnight. So here Katie and I are, right? Literally scaling the not decorative, but very much keep people out fence. Well, I scaled it. Katie got boosted over by Sam. And this one girl sees us. I didn't think much of it, right? However, after we had gotten over and me and Katie were just sitting around waiting for Sam and Em to let us into their respective dorms, I see said girl talking to a security guard and pointing toward us. And of course, at that point, I'm like, oh no, ... Because I'm pretty sure we could get actually trespassed for breaking into campus. Hence, I tap Katie and I'm like, hey, we gotta go. And we start brisk walking away. Well, it turns out there's like nowhere to go. Like, you can go into the dorms or down this one-way street towards the rest of campus, and that's it. AKA, there's nowhere to run. So thinking fast, I find this one bush that has like a brick outcropping next to it. So while with most of the bushes, you could easily tell we were hiding behind it, this one was uniquely concealed. And literally no sooner than I tell Katie to climb behind this bush and I join her, a security car drives down the street right beside us. Like, you have to understand, these bushes were not dense. Like, you could totally see us hiding behind them if you looked intently. So, when the car slowed to a near stop as it passed us, Katie was about to give herself away because she just thought we were cooked. However, I stopped her and was like, wait till he gets out, and thank the Lord I did, because it turns out he was actually just slowing way down for the speed bump and didn't see us. So we hid there for a few more minutes. The car circled back, once again, not seeing us, and then right as it passed, Em and Sam showed up on their scooters and were able to frantically usher us into their respective dorms. Lol. It was such a close call. And apparently, the whole time, Katie was thinking of ways to throw me under the bus and clear her name should we get caught. So I'm glad I know I can trust her to have my best interests at heart in a crisis scenario, ... XD. Still, my quick thinking literally saved us from being caught. So, lol, tertiary SE for the win, baby. Hehe. Sam was so stressed after that. He was visibly nervous for the next hour until we went to bed, ... He kept checking the door like someone was going to come to his dorm any minute. 'Twas quite the close call, but hey, it's only a crime if you get caught, right? Wink. After that, basically nothing happened. It took a bit for us to wind down and get situated, so we ended up going to sleep at like 4 in the morning. I got about 5 hours of sleep that night. However, the one thing that was really nice about sleeping in Sam's dorm is he figured out how to jailbreak his AC, because the university capped it at a certain temp to save money. And thus, the room got really cold at night, which was a lifesaver and so nice. I sleep really cold. Upon rising, Sam and I played the first of many very close Sonic racing games. We were super evenly matched and waited for the girls to get up. See, the original plan and intention behind coming to GCU was to get to meet Sam and Em's friends and kind of get immersed into their life. But we were kind of big dumb about that because, of course, everyone left to go home for spring break. Hence, it ended up just being the 4 of us hanging out like the whole time, which was still good, but also a tad sad we couldn't get to meet anyone. Anyway, eventually, Em and Katie came over. We all went down and got breakfast together. Okay, one thing that was great, though, is Em has like a full ride scholarship because her dad works at the university, so she gets an allotment of dining dollars every semester, which does not even get close to using. Thus, she just paid for me and Katie's food the whole time, which was honestly such a blessing. Katie then proceeded to spill the beans on Em's secret crush to Sam, so then he had to be caught up. and much teasing resulted over the trip as a consequence. And then Sam went to go fix his car because it had just sprung a coolant leak. Hence, Katie and I went back to her dorm. M's dorm is so much cleaner and more cozy than Sam's, and just had FI talks for a few hours till Sam was done. We then met up with Sam and took Sam's friends to go pick up Sam's car that he fixed and drive it back. That went well, and then we caught dinner with M's one friend that was still in town, Emily, an ESFJ, before then starting to drive to this cool rollerblading shopping experience, only for Sam's newly repaired car to break down again, but in a different place. So obviously, he was quite frustrated about that, but thankfully, he had put his electric scooter in the trunk, so he was able to pull that out and scooter back to campus to grab his friend's car and pick us up. The girls and I just had more FI talks as we waited for him. And of course, once he got back, he wasn't really in the mood for the old plan, so we all agreed it would be best just to go back to his dorm and chill. We did some super cringe Jackbox games, which I hated, and then I called it a day a bit early because I was tired and wanted to emotionally process things. And I'm glad I did, because doing that actually helped a ton with the rest of the trip. Got decent sleep that night, and we all woke up in time to go to Em and Sam's church, which was super Calvinist. Yet somehow they didn't realize that, a fact which both Katie and I were low-key flabbergasted. I mean, they literally had a mural of John Calvin on the wall. And besides that, both Em and Sam are mega charismatic, so you would think they would disagree with the ideology, but lol, nope. They just don't think about it enough to disagree, so lol, I guess that's one way to overcome theological differences, XD. Anyway, it was okay. I think Calvinists are dumb, but I do appreciate their conservative ex-Genesis, so it wasn't like bad or anything. It did, however, spur some fun theological conversation afterward, and for all of Sam's insistence about not caring about distinctions, also lol, what a sentence, he got pretty into the debate and the distinctions he entailed within. Of course, I just had fun watching and trying to bridge the gap between Katie and Sam. Didn't want to ruin their fun by joining in. Once we got back, this random guy was like, "Yo, Sam, can I hang with you guys?" And Sam was like, "Sure," even though they were hardly acquaintances. So he ended up getting smoothies with this guy and this other girl who was his friend, and it was okay. Boring mostly. After that, we went to this arcade-like place where I crushed M in cornhole. Lol, no, it was actually quite close, XD. And also was so disturbed by all three of them attempting to play table tennis. After witnessing that, I was willing to do literally anything else. From there, we left and took Emily to the airport, and then after that, we went on this really pretty desert drive to the closest lake, which was like an hour something away. Tell me this isn't beautiful. Okay, to be fair, the two pictures I got were kinda bad, but I promise it was super beautiful in person. Once we got to the lake, 10,000 mosquitoes swarmed us, and we all kind of decided we didn't actually want to swim. But Em convinced us it would be a waste to come all this way and not jump in, so we drove to a dock and all ended up jumping in and promptly climbing out, and that was that, XD. On the drive home, I spurred an FI conversation with Sam. It was actually quite interesting to hear his perspective. Something I remember thinking as I was listening to him is how unspecial I am. Like, as an ENTJ, you have to understand we kind of spawn in thinking we are the best, most special, most extraordinary person in the entire universe. All this is true because it rhymes. But that's just not true. So much of what I have experienced and felt and done is really just human. Like, we all experience most of the same things. Sure, how we get past it and move on from it might be different, but really, we're not that different. And perhaps most importantly, there really isn't all that much I can really take credit for. Like, if I were an ESFP in Sam's shoes, I would probably do the same thing he did, you know? So yeah, I guess that thought just kind of struck me that night. Not like I hadn't thought of it before, but it hit home that time. Plus, let's be honest, the self-absorbed, overconfident ENTJ could probably use more of those kind of self-realizations in his life, ... Once we got back to Sam's dorm, we watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is genuinely a pretty exceptional movie. They did a good job with that one. Sam made us pasta, which was tasty. We all scooted on the college's track, and then Sam and I tried to play pickleball, but my night vision was apparently better than his because he didn't get a single point. So we decided it wasn't worth it and went to bed at like 2 in the morning. I slept in the next day, we all got coffee and went to this cool bookstore / coffee shop. The car we were borrowing spontaneously died numerous times, but Sam hid that fact well, so I don't think the girls noticed, XD. We then got back to campus. I got picked up by Eliana Macy because she just texted me out of the blue like, hey, I heard you're in Arizona. Want to get coffee? So we ended up having probably our best chat ever for the next, 2.5 hours. It's cool getting to know Elle as an adult. I like her better. Everyone kind of all did their own separate things as I caught up with Elle. So when I got back, Sam was still doing an oil change for the friend's car he borrowed. That was the payment for the borrowing. And hence, I just chilled with Em and Katie till he finished. We met up with Sam and got a panda, ate it at his dorm. Afterward, we went to this really cool, intense go-karting place called Andretti. This is apparently a chain of some sort, because I almost did the same thing with Benj and Grace when we were in Maryland, but we weren't able to swing it in the end. So yeah, when Sam mentioned it, I was like, bet. And it was so worth it and super fun. The tracks were all multi-leveled and there's actual skill involved in getting a good time, so my competitive spirit was totally activated. Here's 2 pics of the track. We only ended up doing 1 race because it was pretty expensive, but honestly, I think I did quite well for first time. Here were our best times, which determined our ranking. So yeah, 5th on my first try, and honestly, really similar times with the people ahead of me. Well, except for that first guy. I don't know what he was on, but he was cooking. Regardless, it was quite fun, and I was very glad I did it. M decided to just watch us, which I think is a shame, but I guess with inferior TE and no SE, it makes sense. After that, we all went bowling to try and do a more chill activity the girls could enjoy. It was meh at best. I won, but with a horrible score, so I mostly felt dissatisfied. Once we got back from bowling, Sam showed us this romantic comedy called About Time, and it was honestly quite good. Afterward, Sam and M had an FI talk until literally 4 in the morning, and I just listened because I was tired. The next day, I slept in till noon for obvious reasons, got food with everyone, played really, really old Mario Kart, which sucked, and also foosball, which was way more fun than it should have been. Then we all packed, and I grabbed us an Uber to the airport. Once we got through security and found our gate, we talked some and played some Dutch Blitz as we waited, and then all 4 of us flew to Colorado because the second part of the plan was Sam and M would hang out here for part of our spring break. However, Katie and I still had school those first 3 days, so I at least was pretty busy for the first part. Ben was kind enough to come pick us all up. He took us back to switch yards, in which me, him, and Katie tried to plan this big Austin trip last minute, but we decided in the end it wasn't worth it, which ended up being a good call because it would have been too much for sure. Then Ben drove us home, we dropped Katie off, and then I drove the rest of the way to drop Em off, and we had an FI talk as I did so. I ate a little bit before I went to bed, and then that was the day. The next day, I ended up sleeping through classes due to the super late night. I did, however, make it to work, so huzzah! After that, I hung out with David, his new friend Mac, as well as Katie and Ben. It was actually pretty fun. Once that wrapped up, I worked out, and then I called and talked with William the Great Varley till 1 in the morning. The next day, I woke up to take a test I had missed. All the sick days in the Arizona trip had left me rather behind, as you might imagine. I then played pickleball called Sella for 2 hours, which honestly was quite good. We've grown in pretty similar ways, so honestly, it's really cool to hear what's happening with her. After that, I sent out the last life update, did a study session with Katie, and then went to bed as Em, Katie, and Sam all watched a movie. I legit slept 14 hours that night. 'Twas a much-needed rest. Once I got up, I did pills, called with Jordan, worked out. Sam came along in hopes of the hot tub, but it happened to be closed for literally the week he was here due to remodeling, so that was sad. Hence, he just did random stuff while I worked out. Oh yeah, he was also feeling sick at this point too. Forgot about that. Once we got back, Katie requested an FI drive, so I obliged her. That took a bit. After that finished, the 4 of us drove around in the Spartan to various theaters, looking to see if there was anything interesting to watch, but as it turned out, all the theaters are showing basically the same thing, so lol, we didn't find anything. And because Sam and I had a hike in the morning, I called it around 12 and drove us back so we could all get some sleep. And then said hike occurred. This hike was actually with Petri, Caleb's little sister, because as she heard me talk about my theory of love as I drove Cable to the airport, she decided I was an interesting person and thus invited me to hike. And since the time of the hike was when Sam was here and Sam loves to hike, I of course brought him along. Combine that with 2 of Petri's guy friends, Ben and Kyle, and that was one packed out the Subi. It was so squished in the back, ... We drove up there, talked about quantum physics of all things on the way up. Did not expect that to be where our conversations went, but lol, turns out Petri is friends with a bunch of nerds, and I was loving it, XD. And then we found a parking spot without too much difficulty and proceeded to scramble up the trail. And yes, scramble is the appropriate word because everything was covered in snow, and that genuinely made hiking somewhat difficult. Kyle and Ben in particular had a hard time, so we had to wait up for them. But Sam kept pace just fine, even while sick, so props to him. It was a fun hike and decent conversation. Here's some pictures from the top. Big pretty. We did a lot of sliding on the way down, and then Sam got us all to play tag on the very slick lake. I raced Petri at one point and wiped out, so lol, I took the tag more cautiously. It was actually so slippery. Here's a pic of that. After that, we got down off the mountain. After we got down off the mountain, we ate at Natalie's, the Indian place of lore and legend, as is Miller mountaineering tradition. And then we drove down and got back around 5. Overall, quite the good time. After that, Sam and I were both feeling more chill, so he read a book. Trust me, Sam sitting still long enough to read a book is indeed a marvel. And I also read and took notes. However, as soon as Em and Katie arrived, all peace was disturbed and we were cajoled to go in and out. Also, might I just say the fact that 1, cajoled is in my vocabulary, and 2, that it spontaneously arose in my mind to describe the situation is a marvel. Like, I didn't even know what it meant when I wrote it. I just knew it was the right word for the job, and lo and behold, I looked up the definition, and it's literally perfect. That's kind of cool, just saying, ... On the drive to In-N-Out, I was feeling emotional, so I just chilled in the back seat during that trip. It was cozy. Once we got back, Em persuaded us to watch Dead Poets Society, which turned out to be pretty good, but of course it finished at like 3, so I promptly went to bed thereafter. I then slept in till 3, just to even things out. I then talked with Sam some, hit the gym, Funimade, got the homework I had forgotten about, done, found new music, and took like 500 songs off my It's Not That Bad playlist and put them in my It Actually Is That Bad playlist. And yes, both those playlists genuinely do exist. I then did a quick noodle run with Em and Sam before Katie showed up, and we all watched The Secret Life of Walter Mitty for our last night together. That movie is genuinely quite good and unfortunately also decently long. So, once again, I went to bed quite tired. See, bro, I told you if you rewatched it, you would like it. We talked about this months and months ago, and I was like, this is my favorite movie, and you were like, it was so mid, I don't remember liking it, and I was like, dude, you gotta rewatch it. It is a really good movie. Changed my life. The next morning, I took to write the intro for this life update. I know I haven't done an intro in quite a while, but lol, I felt like that event deserved it. Sam then left the airport, and I wished him well. It was good hanging out with him, but bro, I was so tired by the time he left, I very much appreciated the break. I then basked in the resulting piece for like 15 minutes before then doing Funime, reading, and eating Cheetos, more Funime, and spontaneously hanging out with David at the senior center before he left the state forever, which is sad. Our conversation was pretty meh, especially because after the senior center, we took a drive and I tried to convince him Jungian psychology was legit, but his super skeptical TI Dom brain was like, no, it does not perfectly predict me, so it is false. I felt kind of disappointed in myself after that because I knew he was a TI Dom and should have taken that into account as regards to what data I used to try to convince him, but nope. I just TE'd straight ahead, and lo and behold, it didn't work. Surprise, ... Anyway, regardless, sad to see the man go, and glad we got to have one last hangout. I just did Funime and slept after that ended. The next day, I started off the morning with some reading. Got a great burrito at this hole-in-the-wall place that I went to with Morgan once before. Me, her, and her boyfriend Sergio talked for like 3 hours. Sergio is an INTJ, so it was mostly good conversations until he felt threatened and started TE rhetorical debating, aka when you talk over people and just try and clown on them. It didn't last long, and he recognized he was doing it after I called him out on it, but still, was a tad sad to see him stoop to such tactics. Overall, though, our conversations were civil and pretty interesting. He's an intelligent guy, for sure. As soon as that ended, I then took 30 minutes or so to drink tea, read, and recharge before heading over to Katie's St. Patrick's Day party, which was chaos to the max. Oh my gosh, like every member of her family has NE, and it was genuinely horrible. Like, there was no direction, no consistency, no order whatsoever. I believe now how I felt was captured perfectly by the following quote from the Lego movie. I'll just let you guys read this. There's an image. The more I look at that image, the more I feel fundamentally understood and seen. ... Literally, Katie's family's parties are cloud cuckoo land. You don't understand. Heck, I don't understand. ... The only reason I survived there was one ENFJ there that brought order to the group and somehow made everyone play board games. However, what saved the time for me is that Katie casually mentioned my mind reading abilities, and the ENFJ was like, "Oh, do mine." And then, of course, I told her all the things, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, how did you know that?" And then it was mere minutes before a horde of people had gathered around me, and I was typing all of them, and lol, I quickly became a local celebrity. However, I have been told there was also a faction of the family that thought I was using satanic divination to know everyone so well, and that actually cracks me up. Guys, I need to become a cult leader. I'm missing out on my true calling. Like, you know that Bethel guy that was data mining? Yeah, I could own him. I could literally give the best prophetic words effortlessly, no divination needed. It really is so tempting. ... Anyway, as soon as I got the typing people, I had a good time, but unfortunately it was cut short by my alarm going off telling me to go play racquetball with Benj. But on the other hand, it was racquetball with Benj, so lol, it wasn't actually fortunate, and more than that, wasn't actually unfortunate, and more than that, I won! Yep, you heard me. 3-2 victory, baby. So yes, I'm glad I left early for that noble cause. After racquetball, Benj dropped me off back home, I read some, and then called it a day. I started off the next morning by reading. 'Twas nice. I then went back to sleep, because lol, I was still tired, and upon waking a second time, read some more, worked out, talked with M as I ate, read more, and then hung out with Neo, which was chill. We got sushi and caught up, played some close games of Smash Bros. On my Switch, and then rounded out the night with some magic. After he left, I did small stuff till William called, and then me and William talked until 1. Thursday morning began with pickleball. I've started using spins now. I then read, coordinated with people for archery dodgeball, lol, which is what it sounds like. Dodgeball rules, but with foam-tipped bows and arrows. Katie then pulled up for the planned Aurora drive. See, when Katie asked me to do a Violet Evergarden rewatch, I found that super meaningful, because that anime is actually, you wrote scared, but I know you mean sacred. And thus, I came up with the idea to return the favor by doing the same thing for her, Sacred Thing, which happens to be the music of the artist Aurora. Hence, I planned a drive very similar to what I did for Sydney that one time, where we just sat in silence and listened to her special music. But since it was like 5 hours of music, I figured we might as well go somewhere. Hence, the Aurora drive to the Saratoga Hot Springs was born. It was pretty good. We stopped by Walmart to get snacks and split the cost of that and the gas, which ended up being pretty pricey because my Spartan is not gas efficient. And I just drove as she had her own emotional moment till we reached the hot spring. We then talked for a while, had a fantastic conversation. The same thing happened on the way back. We got back just at midnight, so the timing worked out well too. For me, the drives weren't too exceptional, but I could tell it meant a lot to Katie, so I'm glad I did it, and I genuinely did have a good time, so it was well worth it. The next day, I did Funime, worked out, did small stuff, read, drove to pick up Liam, and then carpooled with him to Alan's place, where then the three of us carpooled to the aforementioned archery dodgeball. Honestly, super fun. Highly recommended. And lol, due to Jess's insistence, I actually have a good number of pictures of the event, so I'll put a few here. I won the final elimination round, so yeah, I guess I just deserve all your praise and adoration, you know? Shrugs. After that wrapped up, we carpooled back to Alan's house and watched funny Dear Kristen videos with Jess. Honestly, those are genuinely hilarious. Once that concluded, I took Liam back to his house, read some, called with M to hear her next installation of drama, and then slept. Yesterday, my stomach waged war with me, I think because of the canes I ate the previous night. Guys, unhealthy food is low-key kinda gross. I tried to do a mostly normal day, but nevertheless, that definitely threw me off. I took pills, read, took an Epsom salt bath, and M randomly called me about a philosophy question, so I tried to explain it to her, but I'm not sure she understood, ... I then just stalled till Ben's 21st birthday shindig began. Nessa organized it, and it was basically just a drinks night at Ben's house with Ben's closest friends. Honestly, I had a really good time, and I didn't expect to, lol, XD, but I think a big part of that, Drew was there. also an ENTJ, and he genuinely cares so much about the kind of conversations I care about. For the first hour, we were deep in a debate he initiated till Ben was like, guys, join the party or my FE will kill you. So, ... we did. But yeah, he got at least tipsy during the event, and some of the things he said were so funny because he was literally just putting on the outside what I thought on the inside, and it was beautiful. So yeah, I had a really good night and a ton of fun and ended up leaving around midnight. As for today, well, I didn't get to sleep till really late, so I slept past church, unfortunately. I then did Funime and, per Katie's request, did a study session and worked on this life update for like 2 hours as she did homework. Then I drove to Loveland to play spontaneous, actually intense soccer. I ran so hard, like all of me hurts right now, XD. And then I got back, ate food, and I'm now an Elantrian zombie as I write this. I can feel every pain acutely, XD. And that's all there is to be said. Until next time. And now, bonus content. Chapter 1. I exhaled slowly and watched my breath as it swirled in the still air. The cold had always comforted me. Today was no exception. I gazed into the valley. Perfectly coated in white, it was as though the world had begun again, and yet it had a scar. 1,000 soldiers marched through the newly fallen snow. They were cold, and even this small dusting had slowed their pace considerably. I closed my eyes and felt the air. The earth seemed to hold its breath. It was keeping a secret. A horse snorted beside me, and I turned to face my lieutenant. Mordecus's army is mere leagues away from the outer wall. The white horse beneath him neighed impatiently. We cannot wait much longer. No, we can't. I flicked the reins and turned my horse to face my knights. 100 men cloaked in pure white looked back at me. They wore no armor and carried no shield, but they were valiant. There is no greater defense. Knights of Crestdale, my voice cut deep into the silence. The enemy is on our doorstep. For too long we have let them have their way. For too long we have waited for help in our time of need, but none has come. No longer shall we wait. Today we stand. We stand for liberty. We stand for honor. And we stand for our people. Today we shall turn the tide in freedom's favor. Today we shall avenge the lives of the lost. And today we shall reign victorious. A shout arose from the knights as they raised their swords. For valor, I cried, lifting my sword high. And for victory, finished the rest of the knights. I spurred my horse, and the white beast reared. A battle cry filled the air, and my steed came crashing back down to earth. I turned and charged into the valley. A horn sounded, and the black army scrambled into action. I hugged the neck of my mount and urged it to go faster. Arrows began to streak past, and I felt my heart as it pounded within my chest. I drew my sword and rushed, full speed, into the enemy ranks. The sea of darkness parted before me as soldiers drove out of the way, barely escaping my massive beast's hooves, but they couldn't escape my blade. Blood stained the snow in my wake as I drove deep into the heart of the enemy. A sword raked my horse's side, and it cried out as it began to fall. I leapt off and rolled to a knee. There would be time later to mourn the dead, but only if I were not counted among them. I brought my sword behind the enemy's knees, and 3 black-armored soldiers crumpled to the ground. 2 swords flew before me. I batted the first away and sidestepped the other. A quick lunge and slash later, their owner's blood joined the others. The dance had begun. A bit of movement struck from the corner of my eye. I whipped around the Dark Knight's blade, smashed into my defense. My feet slid back on the slick snow, but I did not fall. I dropped to a crouch as the enemy's steel assailed the air above me. I struck and plunged my blade through a gap in the man's jagged armor. The man howled and clutched his arm, and I finished him off. I whirled around just as 3 opponents charged at me. Not quite fair, but I would manage. I lunged into the swing of the first and slammed my shoulder into the man's armored chest. He staggered back, winded. I then spun and turned to face the other two. One blade sped toward my head, and the other lunged at my stomach. I made a C with my body and ducked, simultaneously, narrowly avoiding both. I slammed my blade down hard on the sword intended to kill me, and delivered a slash to the man's neck before he could defend. Then, keeping my spin, I brought low my other opponent. I turned to face the last of the three. The Black Knight's eyes grew wide, and he took a step back. Suddenly, two swords, dark as night, appeared at the man's throat. "Coward!" hissed a deep voice, and the blades slid. The man's body fell, headless, to the ground. Towering before me stood a giant. His armor was as if iron had fused to man and become one. His helmet's jagged spikes curled around his head like a crown. On his back, he carried two sheaths for his dark blades. His black eyes bored into my soul. "Hello, General." The man's voice was like death itself. "Get this scum out of my sight," the giant commanded, gesturing to the bodies littering the ground. Quickly, the Black Knights dragged the bodies out of the way and gave their leader a wide berth. "I'm going to enjoy this," he smirked and lunged toward me. I raised my sword and caught both his blades mid-swing. Sparks flew and the clash of masters reverberated through the valley. Pain exploded in my wrist, and I barely managed to keep hold of my sword. But my enemy didn't wait for me to recover, and I found a sword streaking toward my head. I ducked and heard the sound of the blade as it narrowly missed me. I moved my sword to where I knew the other blade would strike. The shock of the impact rippled through my body, and I leapt back. A black blade slashed the air before me. "General, have you ever pondered death?" the giant asked as I struck for a gap in his armor. Two crossed blades caught my sword and threw it back at me. "One would suppose that a general, of all people, would be well versed on the subject." The giant darted forward and struck with lightning speed. I parried a blade and barely avoided the other. "But do you know what I've found?" I took a step backward, and blades smashed into my defense. "I've found they will not even think of death." I felt my muscles burn as he increased the pressure. And being the cowards that they are, they do all they can to flee from it. That's when I felt a fire ignite within me. "I am no coward!" I whispered and dropped to a knee. Two blades sliced the air above me as I propelled myself into his legs. The giant only took a step backward, but that was all I needed. I sprung to my feet, and with all the force my arms could muster, I swung at the giant's left. The man blocked it and took another step back. I pushed my offensive and began a rhythmic attack. Left, right, jab. Left, right, jab. My opponent began to fall under the spell, anticipating where the next attack would fall. I waited, and finally the time came. I hadn't even begun to strike, and my opponent was positioned to block his right side. I feigned a right attack, and then with a great force, swung for the giant's left. But my blade only cut the cold air. With incredible speed, the man stepped just out of the reach of my sword. I couldn't stop myself, and the force of my swing spun me just a little too far. Suddenly, pain exploded in my stomach. I gazed down at the tip of the black blade protruding from me. Blood began to stain my white coat, and my vision began to fade. A dark presence loomed beside me. "But death always wins," the giant said, and all went black. Tangible tension filled the room as the children stared wide-eyed at General Gavin. He couldn't hold it anymore and burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha! You should see your faces." The children, however, did not seem to find it so funny. Did you die?" Gavin peeled over, his laughter back in full force. The child blushed after realizing what he had just said. Aiden couldn't help but smile from his observant position against the courtyard wall. It took a little while, but eventually General Gavin, or as Aiden knew him, Grandpa, regained his composure. "No, I didn't die. Then what happened? Well, I can't say I really know. The next thing I remember, I'm in a bed with one heck of a headache and so much pain in my stomach, I wished I was dead after all. But, be that as it may, the Lord decided I would stay. So here I am today. But what about the giant? Turns out that after that despicable monster left me to die, our reinforcements from Tira arrived and defeated him and his army. They found me half dead in the snow, and the rest is history. But you know what? The giant was right. Aiden sighed and shook his head. He had heard this story 100 times, and each and every time his grandpa said the same thing. I was a coward. What do you mean? Asked one of the older boys. My daddy says you're the bravest man in all Crestdale. Ah, so I've been told. But I fear the one thing. Death. It seems like a reasonable thing to fear, Aiden said, pushing off the wall. All eyes snapped to him. Grandpa grinned. Only for the man who doesn't know Emmanuel. Grandpa embraced Aiden. Dad needs you in the Great Hall. Well, then tell him to hold his horses. I was about to teach these youngsters the most important lesson they will ever learn in their life. All right. I'll tell him you'll be over in a moment. Better make it a while. Grandpa gave Aiden a pat on the shoulder. Fine, consented Aiden with a hint of a smile and a shake of the head. He turned and marched back toward the castle gate. Crestdale was no grand province like Tira, but that certainly didn't mean it was defenseless. Aiden gazed up at the arched gate several cubits tall and felt a slight shiver go up his spine as he passed beneath the portcullis. Ever since he was a child, he feared the great spikes would suddenly crash down upon him, and despite the fact that he walked through the gate often, the fear had not left him. Aiden cleared the cobwebs from his mind. What am I thinking? I've lived for almost 16 summers, and yet I fear a portcullis? The guards manning the gate gave Aiden no trouble as he entered the courtyard within. He allowed the pleasant aroma of flowers to cleanse his nostrils from the constant smell of filth that lingered beyond the courtyard's walls. Aiden never understood why his grandfather would forsake the pleasantries he deserved just to tell the common children's stories. But considering the many odd things his grandpa did, it was likely some reason related to his passionate belief in Emmanuel. Aiden's stride didn't falter as a pair of guards opened two smaller doors before him. He strode down the long corridors and subconsciously navigated his way to the great hall. He sighed as he approached two muscular guards standing at attention before the door to the great hall. They wore thick leather armor that covered their entire bodies, and atop that, a heavy coat of polished steel. Their uniform was so burdensome that new recruits were known too often to faint from exhaustion or heat stroke, whichever came first. Aiden began to recite the dreaded but unfortunately necessary ritual. Can I speak? In unison, the silent warriors pounded the butts of their spears into the ground. As always, the answer was yes. I request an audience with General Mannering. The guards did not respond. Right. Yes or no questions. Can I have an audience with General Mannering? Once more, the guard's spears hit the ground floor once. Aiden waited. Nothing moved. Fumed Aiden. May I have an audience with my father? The spears resounded once again, and a guard sneaked into the hall. If, that is, a guard his size could sneak. Aiden frowned. Someday, he hoped to discover the idiot that created the Order of Silent Warriors so that he could dig up his bones and grind them into dust. Send him in, commanded a muffled voice from inside. The doors gaped open and Aiden strode into the open-aired room. Let me guess. He wouldn't come. Aiden's father, General Boren Mannering, stood at the head of the table, upon which sprawled a great map of Crestdale and its surrounding regions. No, sir. His father sat down hard. Doesn't he know I could use his help? He ran his hands through his hair and took a deep breath. Aiden lingered in the room. May I stay?
I'm sorry, son. With the tournament so near, I haven't time for your questions.
Aiden's gaze fell.
But remember, soon you shall take this seat and command all the valiant warriors of Crestdale. Of this I am certain.
As you wish, grumbled Aiden as he turned and strode out of the hall. Of course his father had said no. That was all he ever said, unless, of course, it concerned swordplay, in which case he would not accept no as an answer. There were a few occasions when Aiden recalled his father being proud of him, mostly when he performed exceedingly well with his blade. Otherwise, he always met a man with a heart of stone. Aiden let his mind drift as he walked. He could see himself, just a young lad of 12 summers, as he stalked amongst the thick brambles and pine trees. His father, always present, but sure to not interfere, lingered somewhere behind him. The sweat of previous excursions covered his weary body. For nearly a day he had followed this grand beast, being sure to always stay downwind so it would not smell him, and now finally he had the perfect shot. The animal grazed a mere 30 cubits away, occasionally raising its head to survey its surroundings, before peacefully returning to its meal. Aiden felt the adrenaline of the hunt coursing through his veins. He drew back the arrow, and the bow creaked ever so slightly. The stag's head jerked up and froze. He only had one shot. The arrow raced through the air and dug deep into the animal's flesh. He had missed the heart. The beast jumped into the foliage. Aiden cursed his aim and sprinted after it, quickly losing hope of finding his prize. Until dusk, Aiden remembered searching, following a trail near invisible, a hoofprint here, a broken branch there, until finally he found it. There, in a shallow valley, lay the fallen stag. It saw him, and its wide eyes darted wildly. It tried to rise, but its legs buckled beneath it. Its breaths came short and shallow as its blood spilled into the earth.
Well done, boy. Now finish it.
Aiden saw himself, as if in a portrait, frozen, and felt once again the fear and anger that had gripped his heart. He had done this.
What are you waiting for? I said finish it. Do it now!
As if in a dream, Aiden forced his legs to carry him. Suddenly he was there, kneeling beside the buck, knife in hand. He recalled the waves of guilt that crashed over his mind. Who was he to take a life? Aiden closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and plunged the knife into the stag's heart. The beast struggled for a moment before falling terribly still.
Well done, son.
Aiden scarcely heard it over his own silent tears. Aiden shook the cursed memory from his mind. One could not live in the past. Besides, he had overcome such childish sentiment. As if to prove his point, he drew his sword and slashed the air before him. He looked up and found his feet had taken him to the arena, a part of the courtyard dedicated to the mastery of the sword. It was here that he must prove his worth and earn his position as future general of Crestdale armies, though in truth, it was almost guaranteed to him at birth. No one in all of Crestdale had trained so many summers or been so forced to succeed. Still, that knowledge did not quiet his nerves as he entered beneath the shadow of the stands. The sound of clashing steels echoed down the tunnel as Aiden approached the stadium. He leaned up against the wall in the shadow of the tunnel and watched the battles that raged across the stage. Closest to him, Mark and a blonde-haired lad sparred. They both had sweat dripping from their brows, but it was clear that Mark's opponent was far more exhausted. The blonde lunged for Mark and overstepped. Mark simply sidestepped. Aiden shrugged. I would have gone for it. But that was Mark, cautious and not one to take unnecessary risks. Aiden let his eyes drift. 3 more partners danced across the arena floor. The first pair Aiden didn't recognize, but their swordplay was sloppy and crude, so he didn't really care. He knew the faces of the next pair, but couldn't quite place their names. In fact, he wasn't sure he had ever taken the time to even ask their names. The last pair consisted of a young man Aiden was acquainted with, Peter, and someone whom he knew far too well. Roger smashed his blade into Peter's defense, but Peter didn't budge. Aiden smiled. It was good to see someone else give Roger a run for his money. Ever since they were kids, Aiden had sparred with Roger. Due to Roger's natural talent with a blade and his inherently muscular build, Aiden had been hard-pressed to keep up. Therefore, a rivalry had grown between them. However, this wasn't some playful game that they both enjoyed. No, it was serious, deadly serious. Roger pressed forward and put Peter in a steady retreat. Aiden saw it in his posture. Roger was angry. Aiden pushed off from his spectating position and jogged toward them. There might be trouble in the near future. He drew his sword. For those who didn't know him, Roger's anger was a force to be reckoned with. Worse yet, it was a force that didn't know when to stop. Peter tripped, and Roger bore down on him.
I yield,
Peter said, but Roger didn't stop. Aiden sprinted the remaining distance. Frantically, Peter deflected Roger's strikes.
I yield,
He screamed.
Hey!
Aiden yelled and hit Roger's sword from the side. Roger whipped around to see who would dare oppose him.
He said he yielded, all right?
Aiden took a subconscious step back. The anger melted from Roger's face, and a sly sneer appeared.
Well, if it isn't the only son of the great General Boren,
Roger said smugly. He feigned fear.
Oh, is our fun disturbing you? Please accept my humblest apologies, my lord.
He drew out the last word as he bowed.
You better start now, because pretty soon I will be your lord.
The sneer withered on Roger's face.
Funny, I'm probably the only person daring enough to insult him.
No doubt it was true. Roger towered a whole head over Aiden and had as much muscle as any full-grown man. He knew that, had he not carried a sword, Roger, likely as not, would have struck him down where he stood.
Look here, boy,
Roger growled, getting in Aiden's face.
I'm winning tomorrow, and you won't stand in my way.
Aiden took a step back and fanned the air in front of him.
Well, your blade doesn't kill me. Your breath sure will.
That was the last straw. Roger yelled and drew his sword, bringing it crashing down hard on Aiden's defense. Aiden let the blade slide off and countered with a quick jab. Roger batted away the strike and began to advance. Retreating forward, Aiden continued to block each of his foe's attacks with ease. He laughed. Roger's blows grew harder. Aiden had fought Roger far too many times to not have recognized his weakness, anger. As the fire within him grew hotter, his technique grew cold. Soon, he swung at Aiden with reckless force, putting all his weight into his blows. The time had come. Roger swung hard for Aiden's right side, but instead of blocking it, Aiden simply sidestepped, allowing the force of the blade to yank Roger forward. His opponent off balance, Aiden had little difficulty bringing his sword to the back of Roger's neck.
Yield,
commanded Aiden. Roger, cursing, dropped his sword. Aiden relished the quick victory. Roger was no match for Aiden's skill. No one was. Aiden left Roger to pick up his sword as he marched to a different part of the arena. Peter walked up to him.
Hey, Aiden, thanks for what you did back there.
Peter kicked the dirt.
Yeah, just thanks. No problem,
Aiden said lightly.
I would never miss a chance to best Roger.
He began to cycle through stances.
All right,
said Peter somewhat awkwardly.
Well, thanks again.
Aiden nodded and went back to his stances. He imagined the crowd that would surround him. The applause seemed to echo through his ears, and he could feel the stomping of feet as it shook the ground. Suddenly, he was in the middle of an epic battle. A dark, masked knight stood before him, and they began to duel. The shadows grew long as Aiden fought this invisible foe, sometimes executing practice strokes, and other times improvising as he went along. Finally, sweaty and breathing hard, Aiden was awakened from his trance. I thought I might find you here. Aiden whirled around.
Just practicing.
Well then, why don't you practice with someone who can land a punch? Grandpa drew his sword and got into a fight-ready stance. Aiden tilted back his head in an exasperated sigh.
I'm tired.
I'm old. Aiden smiled. He got into a ready stance and they began to circle. If Aiden knew anything about sparring with his grandpa, then he would expect a long and hard fight. True, he wasn't as nimble or quick as Aiden, but he had skill. To go against Grandpa with brute force was like pounding against a brick wall. Aiden shook his head in wonder. Grandpa's skill, married with the strength of his youth, good thing he was on his side. But fortunately for him, age can do a number on a man. He would use his youth to his advantage. He would keep his grandpa moving, always moving, taking light, short strikes to keep his opponent on his toes, yet not tire himself out. There was one problem. He was already tired. Grandpa lunged forward, and the battle began.
Are you ready for your big day tomorrow? Asked Grandpa, taking a quick jab at Aiden's left.
Aiden stepped to the side and took a swipe at Grandpa's left. Their blades clashed.
Why do you always want to talk?
Aiden asked, between breaths, slamming down hard on the last word.
Because it makes it more fun. Don't you agree? No!
Aiden countered his grandpa's slash and lunged. Grandpa knocked the blade aside and struck for Aiden's thigh. Aiden blocked it, but just barely.
Besides, you won't talk to me otherwise, and I want to spend time with my grandson.
Aiden didn't reply, but grimaced inwardly.
Gah! He's right, you know.
His thoughts whispered to him.
Shut up,
he commanded. He spun, a risky but effective move, channeling the force of the spin into his blade. Grandpa let the full force of the blow spread down the length of his sword and took a step back. Impressive, he stated casually before spinning and slamming his blade into Aiden's. Aiden took the concentrated force of the hit and stumbled backward. Grandpa let him regain his footing and smirked.
But I can do better.
The adrenaline of the competition began to fill Aiden's veins.
You're not beating me today, old man,
he thought as he caught his second wind. They battled until dusk, the fight raging all over the arena, until finally Grandpa began to grow tired. Aiden threw him into steady retreat, being careful not to overextend his already weary muscles.
You didn't answer my question,
Grandpa said as he skillfully blocked Aiden's attacks. Aiden breathed hard and pushed forward.
Are you prepared even to lose?
The word lose hit Aiden like a tree, and he faltered. Grandpa took up the offensive.
Ah, so I see that you aren't.
Aiden deflected his grandpa's cut and tried to get his grandpa to retreat.
I will not lose,
he thought to himself.
But what if you do?
Asked Grandpa, almost as if he could read his grandson's mind. He deflected Aiden's counterattack and pushed forward.
What if you aren't the great swordsman you're supposed to be?
Aiden ducked a swipe at his head.
What if you don't win first place?
He pushed aside a jab at his stomach.
What if you fail?
The words echoed in Aiden's mind as Grandpa unleashed a combination of moves so fast, Aiden couldn't make out where one strike ended and the other began. Suddenly, a steely point pricked his chest.
Yield,
commanded Grandpa, and Aiden dropped his sword.
Place your worth where it cannot be taken from you,
said Grandpa, breathing heavily, spinning on his heel and walking toward the stadium door.
And get some rest.
You need it. Aiden slowly bent down and picked up his sword.
What if Grandpa's right? What if I don't win?
He shook the thought from his mind.
No,
he said aloud, and his knuckles went white.
I will win. I have to.